Welcome everyone. In this video I'm going to share advices to do a literature review. And something that you usually have to do as an undergraduate student, but also as a researcher. And that's not necessarily the part that many people likes or understand how to proceed. And there are really big traps to avoid. And after years, I finally better understand, following advices from more senior researchers, how to do that and how to avoid those main traps. So let's see that together.
And you have control over the
effect measure what the effect of this
So the first thing that you should absolutely avoid doing is to go on Google Scholar and just type your keywords. The main issue is that, which is exactly how I started doing literature reviews, is that it's very hard, mainly as a undergraduate student, to understand the quality and the relevance of what you will see and find as papers. And when you do a literature review, it's usually very hard or impossible, or not even the aim, to just read all the papers. It's just to find the key papers that really reflect the state of the research and the main advances in this research. So when you just type on Google Scholar, you get everything from many journals, and often it might be from pretty bad journals, but it's hard to know at the beginning if you're not very careful about that. So you might find papers that you think address perfectly the question, but actually nobody cares about those papers because they were not really well done, let's say. So first, we again have to understand what's the aim of a literature review. It's really to paint the landscape of the literature today and to contrast with your research, usually, to show the novelty of your research. What's new compared to what exists already and how it contributes to different strands of the literature. So you don't have to cite everything, you don't have to read everything, you just have to know what are the key papers you should cite. So to do that, my starting point is the following. I will rather look for the top 5 journals in economics, so you really have 5 top journals in economics that dominate the field, and you look into those, either on their website, either on Google. You try to restrict the research, the search to those journals, and you look for really key papers with key authors that have published in those journals related to what you are doing. So you really start with keywords, obviously, but it might be not exactly what you are doing, but really just to find, for example, if you're working in environmental economics, as I'm doing right now, I will really look for the main papers in this field and try to get closer to mine, but first really to look to the really main papers that everybody would like to cite, or really the big breakthrough there where everybody followed. And that will be your starting point. And you have, basically, if you start with the top 5, you have pretty high level of confidence that it's really top quality by top authors, and that people care about that. The second indicator, I know it's not perfect, it's just signaling, will be the number of citations. If it's quite recent, relatively recent, a few years, maybe the last 10 years, but you have already thousands or hundreds of citations, it's a pretty good sign that this is a solid paper that people care about and that you have to cite. And once you really have found this author or this key paper, you can look actually, and that's exactly the second step that I will do, is that I will start looking in their literature review. And once I have this, what I will do next is actually looking who are the papers who cite this paper, this key paper. And then you really try to build from this main point your literature review. And you can obviously start with several points. So you have one main point, and then you try again to refine or to start to do the same process with a second paper and a third paper. So the first thing is really look at the key paper in a top 5 journal with tons of citations. Then look at who are citing this paper and what are the citations in this paper. And then you can also look at the author who published this paper, if he has more or she has similar papers. So you can go as well on Google Scholar, you click on the author page, you look through the publications, maybe by year, to see if there is something more recent. And then once you have really the main thing, the key papers that everybody talks about in the field, you also need to show that you understand what's going on right now. And maybe those are not papers that have thousands of citations. They are maybe not papers that are published yet. If you really want to show, and that's kind of one of the key, that you understand and you know what people are doing right now, what are the hot questions right now. You will rather look for what's called a working paper. So work that's not published yet and that's really recent. Like this, you can really show what are the discussion right now. And then to do that, either you go on main working papers website like NBER, CPR, or you can go as well on the author page to see if they are those key authors, if they are working right now on some very important papers. So again, main thing is not to cite everything you find. It's really to try to assess the quality, to relying on some metrics, on some signaling. That's not perfect, but that's usually the best you can do when you learn. At some point, you start knowing everything, the papers, when it's really your field, the authors, what they are doing right now, you go to the seminars and so on. But until then, there is a long road, and that's definitely not the situation for a vast majority of people. So the pathway will be really to find a key paper, look for the literature review, look for who is citing those papers, look for novelty in research using working paper series, or the authors themselves who already published in those very important pieces, and then you can start to build your literature review. Well, if you think about something else or if you have questions, please ask or comment below. I will discuss with you that with a great pleasure as usual. So that being said, have a wonderful day and see you around.